Mike Cayley 7 here with my unsecured sleeve. There we go. Saw it in the shadow over there. So, I'm on my way home. Figured I'd make a little video. Somebody made a comment. Blue Gem 6559, I believe it was, made a comment that made me think. And first I'll start with a story, and then I'll ask you my question that made me think. And that is, the story is, when I first started making these videos, way back in the old days of 2006, 2007, there was a guy on the live video, I think it was called live video, and he made great videos out of Tennessee, and his name was Smyrna Cowboy. And his tagline was, "An old coot on a scoot." And so, looking back on that time period, there was no question in my mind when he said "an old coot on a scoot." I looked at his picture and I just thought, well, yeah, it kind of fits. Okay, fine. He's an old coot on a scoot. Never did I look at it and go, how can he call himself an old coot? He's a baby, or he's only 30-something. I couldn't question it. There was no question that came up naturally in my head. It was just, he's an old coot on a scoot. No offense, Dave, but you didn't look like you were 18 back in 2007. So the point of it is this: I am now the age that Dave was when he started doing this and calling himself an old coot on a scoot. And that's my big concern here, is I'm wondering, when do you get to be called an old coot? When is that not a weird thing? Not that I want to call myself an old coot necessarily, but if I were to call myself an old coot right now, or an old fart, I imagine any number of people would say, what are you talking about? You're too young to be calling yourself that. So, how is that determined? Where is that line? Maybe if you look older, because I've seen people who are a young 60 and people who are an old 30. So maybe it's how you look, maybe your mindset. I don't know. I mean, I'll be 48 in September. So I'm just 2 years and 2 months away from 50. And I don't feel like an old coot, although I really will say this: I have aching joints and muscles and such, and I'm feeling every bit of my 47 plus years, but I don't feel like I'm an old person. I wouldn't say old fart. My dad, when he was 50, he got a hat, and everybody laughed and had a great old time, and he was kind of proudly sporting it, and on the hat it said "old fart." And he said, "Look at me, I'm an old fart. 50, I'm half a century old, I'm an old fart." My mom, when she was about that age, 50, yeah, even before that, about 50, she used to say, "Will you do something for your poor old gray-haired mother?" So she was referring to herself as an old person back when she was about the age I am now. And I know times change and life expectancies have moved, older, and now they say 60 is the new 50 or 40 is the new 30 or whatever. But somebody in my shoes, not that I'm wanting to do this, I don't want to be considered old, obviously. Nobody really ever does, I don't think. I don't know. But if I said to people, I'm an old person, or I'm an old coot, I'm an old fart, there's pretty much nobody that I know who would accept that from me. They'd say, no, you're not. And even people younger than me, like Patrick Orvis, who's what, 25? I wonder what Patrick would say if I said I'm an old fart. I don't think he'd say, yes, you are. Maybe somebody who's in their teenage years still would look at me and say, yeah, you are an old fart. Maybe. So that's the question. When do you become an old fart? How is that determined? Are you an old fart? Are you a near old fart? What happens after you're an old fart? Do you become something else? George Carlin called these people that don't want to be known as old anymore. In the old days we had senior citizens and we had the elderly and old people. And now you can't say that to what he called the yuppies. You know, the baby boomers. They don't want to be referred to as old, he said. And he pointed out a term they called themselves, something like the pre-aged or something. And he said, I got one for you. Why don't you just call yourselves the pre-dead? And I thought that was really funny. Gallows sense of humor. And I'm sure he insulted many a baby boomer by saying that kind of stuff. He was older than a lot of those baby boomers. He was in my dad's generation, the silent generation. Born before the war. Anyway, this is my Kaylee 7. I'm neither old, nor am I incredibly young. I'm just a person on the road of life, trying not to screw it up too badly. I'm wishing you well. Stay safe out there. You never know how long you have. And if you don't ride intelligently, you might not even have as much as you think. So, on that note, I'll talk to you later. Hey, and look, no light. Alright. So far, so good. I'm a happy man. Happy man with a happy plan to go home and relax. Try to get down as low as I can get. Get that Bella scraping.